All right, let's talk about one of the biggest puzzles facing us today, our global energy future. I mean, the pieces are everywhere, right? From these massive futuristic cities to the middle of nowhere, and every single piece has to fit perfectly. So let's jump in and try to make sense of it all.
So here's the thing. We all know we need power, we need cleaner energy. That's the easy part. But how we get there, that's where it gets really, really tricky. Because what works wonders in one country might be a complete and utter disaster somewhere else. So the big question for us is this: how do we do this without messing it up badly?
Okay, so to get some answers, we're going to take a quick trip around the world. First up, we'll see what Tokyo's betting on. Then we'll check out Germany for a bit of a cautionary tale. After that, it's on to Africa to look at some really fundamental challenges. And we'll wrap things up in the Australian outback with a totally different way of thinking.
All right, first stop, Tokyo's big solar bet. We're talking about a top-down mandate for a massive megacity. And yeah, they've decided to go all in on solar with a really powerful top-down policy. They're not just hoping the market figures it out, they're basically making it happen.
Here's the deal. It's actually a pretty straightforward and powerful rule. Starting in April 2025, if you're a major builder in Tokyo, you have to put solar panels on new homes. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's a really aggressive move to hit their 2050 net zero target. But, and this is a big but, when you force change like this, you can get some wild, unintended consequences. And that brings us to a really important story. Okay, let's head over to Germany to see some of those solar pitfalls. This is a cautionary tale of exactly those kinds of unintended consequences we were just talking about. See, Germany went big on solar a while back, and what they learned? Well, it's something places like Tokyo really need to hear. Okay, look at this number, 457 hours. Any guesses what that is? It's not, how many sunny days they had. Nope, it's something way, way weirder.
That's right. In 2024, for 457 hours, the price of electricity in Germany went negative. I mean, think about that. Power companies were literally paying people to use their electricity. It's because on sunny days, when not many people were using power, the grid got so completely flooded with solar that it just couldn't cope. So how on earth did that happen?
Well, the whole thing comes down to this policy called a feed-in tariff. It was this huge idea Germany had to get a solar revolution started. Basically, the government promised to pay a really good fixed price for any and all solar power people fed back into the grid. And look, it worked. It got solar panels on roofs like crazy. But it had one massive flaw. It encouraged everyone to produce as much power as they possibly could all the time, whether anyone actually needed it or not. And this chart? Wow, it shows you exactly what was going on. In those moments when prices went negative, you had a mind-blowing 34 gigawatts of solar power just pouring into the grid. It completely swamped everything else. But here's the kicker. Most of this was coming from little rooftop systems on people's houses. There was no big red button to just turn them off. And the price tag for all this? Take a look. 18.5 billion euros. That's what the German government had to fork over in just 1 year, 2024, to make up the difference between what they promised to pay and what the power was actually worth. A massive, painful bill, all from a policy that was supposed to be a good thing. So what's the big takeaway from Germany's headache? Well, a few key things, right? First, you've got to be able to control the systems. Second, any subsidies have to be tied to what the market actually needs. Third, you need storage, like home batteries. You also need smart ways to manage it all. And finally, big investments in large-scale storage. These are the lessons that everyone, especially places like Tokyo, needs to be writing down.
Okay, let's do a complete 180. We're heading to Africa now, where we're looking at some foundational hurdles. The problem here isn't an oversupply of power. It's about just having a basic, reliable supply in the first place. This is a whole different ballgame. We're not talking about fine-tuning policies. We're talking about building from the ground up.
And this quote from an African minister, it just hits the nail on the head. He's saying the plants are not producing because either pipelines are broken or gas supply was not properly planned. What he means is the big, shiny projects get built, but then they just sit there. Why? Because the basic stuff, the boring but essential stuff like a working pipeline or a grid that can handle the new power, just wasn't planned for. So what do you do about that? Well, one idea is something called Project Portfolio Management, or PPM. Now, don't worry about the corporate speak. Just think of it like this. It's a super tough filter for big projects. Before anyone can even think about spending money, PPM forces them to ask, is this project actually going to work? Does it even make sense for us? And maybe, most importantly, is this the absolute best thing we could be doing with our time and money right now? So in the real world, what that means is you're asking the really hard questions up front. You're looking at a project and saying, okay, is this actually a good idea? Are there any obvious red flags that mean we should kill this thing right now before we waste a ton of money? And how does it compare to all the other things we could be doing? The whole point is to stop those big, expensive failures before they even start, making sure only the absolute best ideas get off the ground. And for our last stop on this tour, we're going somewhere completely different, the Australian outback. This is all about innovation from the ground up. We're not talking about government mandates or big corporate plans here. This is a model that's all about know-how, about expertise that starts at the grassroots level. See, in Central Australia, the focus is on exporting knowledge. There's this group, Desert Knowledge Australia, and they had a brilliant realization. They figured out that their most valuable export isn't solar panels or batteries, it's the knowledge of how to make them work. The expertise they've built up over years figuring out how to get reliable solar to tiny remote communities in one of the toughest environments on Earth, that is what's truly valuable.
So let's just put these two ideas side by side. On one side, you've got the top-down mandate. Like in Tokyo, it's one big rule for everyone, designed to force a massive change. And on the other side, you have this grassroots expertise model from Australia. It's about building specialized, super practical knowledge from the ground up and then sharing it.
And this isn't just some nice idea, it's actually happening. A perfect example is the Bushlight Project. We're talking about a $24 million effort run out of Alice Springs, all about bringing custom-built renewable energy to remote indigenous communities across 4 huge states. It's that whole knowledge-first idea put into practice. So that brings us right back to our big question. You've got the top-down mandate, the super careful foundational planning, and the grassroots innovation. Which one is the right tool for the job? Well, what we've seen is that there is no single silver bullet. The real secret sauce, it seems, isn't about finding that one perfect answer. It's about knowing which approach to use, where, and when. So the real question we're left with is, how do we get smart about combining all of these lessons to finally solve this global energy puzzle?